stopping by our YouTube channel. Here's the deal. My name is Tim Summers, and I'm the youth pastor here at Elevation Church. And what you're about to watch is a video from one of our youth directors, Jon Rush. You might know him, and here's the deal. His personality is a little bit too good not to share. Okay, maybe not, but that is the theme of this month, is we are talking about everything too good not to share, which we believe is our faith. And so here's what we want you to do. Make sure you hit that share button while you're watching this video and smash that subscribe button as well. I think you'll enjoy this. He titled it, "This is How We Change the World." Check this out.
Hello everybody, welcome to the Elevation Youth YouTube page. My name is John. I'm one of our youth directors on staff here at Elevation Church, and I have the opportunity right now to have a conversation with you. I'm sitting down, I got my table, I had my coffee earlier, and so what I want this to feel like is a conversation. We're coming around the Word of God, and that's important because there's not a lot of sure things in the world that we live in, but this is one of the things that you can take to the bank. If we haven't had the chance to meet, let me just give you a little bit of info about myself. I have a wife, her name is Amanda. We just celebrated 5 years of marriage. Holler, not just one ring, 2 rings, super taken, all right? And to make sure that people really know who my boo is, we made a baby. Her name is Saul Rose Rush. Y'all can see pictures of them right here. Oh, so beautiful. Saul is honestly so amazing. People always tell you that the world changes once you have a kid. They're right. And also cannot leave out my man, our dog. His name is Daryl, and we will still to this day refer to him as our firstborn. Check out a picture of Daryl. He's the best dog. So good. This is how I talk to him. Does anyone talk to their dog like this? Put it in the comments if you talk to your dog like this. And while you're in the comments, make sure that you've liked this video and that you subscribe to this YouTube channel, because this is just one of literally hundreds of videos that we are creating for you, because we're here to influence the world, and we want to develop the youth, you who actually do the influencing of the culture, okay? Of the culture, or you can say of the culture. Today we're going to be looking at the book of Acts, chapter 9, and I want to right off the bat introduce the title of this message, and it's this: This is how we change the world. This is how we change the world. This is how we change the world. This is how, okay, I'm just kidding. This is how we change the world. The moment I said that, some of you guys probably instantly thought of the incredible cliche that phrase has become. Like, it might drum up images of like a poster in like English class with like a cat. Like, this is how you change the world. And it's like randomly like about to jump off a building. I don't know why they always portray cats in such precarious situations, but this is not the image that we hope that you leave with. I think that so often cliches are actually phrases and truths that we just need to reclaim. That I believe that if you're watching this, that you actually can be a part of changing the world. And that title is close to my heart because this is actually the title of a documentary that our church put out to celebrate the 5 years of an existence as a movement. And it documents our pastor, Pastor Steven, and his family, and a core group of 8 families who from nothing started what we now know as Elevation Church. And I watched this documentary in 2010. I bought the DVD, and I was 18 years old. And this documentary, watching what God could do through the faithfulness of a few people, this is what confirmed the call in my life to say, that's what I want to do for the rest of my life. Did you know that if you're a part of Elevation Church, if you're a part of our youth ministry, you are a part of an incredible heritage. And if you're not part of our youth ministry, we're just so glad that you are here. And I want to let you know right off the bat that as difficult and unimaginable as it might sound to say, I'm going to be a part of changing the world, I know that God is more than capable of using somebody even like you. So we're going to turn to the Word of God. Acts chapter 9, verse 1, it says this: Meanwhile, Saul was still breathing out murderous threats against the Lord's disciples. We're going to learn about this man named Saul. You might have heard of him, might have not. Verse 1, it brings us right into this guy's situation. Saul was still breathing out murderous threats against the Lord's, Jesus' disciples. He was a not nice dude. Saul was a murderer. He captured people who followed Jesus. He put them in prison. He persecuted them. There was a guy named Stephen, and earlier in the book of Acts, he was one of the very first leaders to be called from, he's just like, hey, I'm just attending. And they were like, hey, you should be a leader. He was one of the very first people to do that in the Bible. And he was also the first person recorded other than Jesus to die for his faith. And it says in the Bible that Saul was there to hold their jackets. Saul held the jackets of the people that murdered one of the first Christ followers, and it says he approved of his killing. Saul was a bad dude. Verse number 1, it shows us he was breathing out murderous threats against the Lord's disciples. But I want to bring you down to verse 22. Same chapter, different verse. Verse 1, murderous threats. This is what verse 22 says. Yet Saul grew more and more powerful and baffled the Jews living in Damascus by proving that Jesus is the Messiah. In the span of one chapter, verse 1 to verse 22, we're going to see how a man goes from a villain to somebody who's actually trying to convince people that Jesus is Lord. You might ask yourself, how could that be possible? I think it's hard for us to imagine somebody making this kind of change because I think many of us have given up on the idea of change. We live in a world where people don't listen to each other. They actually just get more entrenched in their own ideas in the first place. All Twitter is, all Facebook is. It's happening to Instagram. I don't know what really happens on Snapchat. TikTok, generally, we're just dancing on there, but someone's trying to shut us down. We don't know what's going to happen. By the time you're watching this video, TikTok could be gone. It's not really going to go away. But anyway, we live in a world where people don't seem to change. They just get to be more like they were in the first place. But I want to tell you that when Jesus is in the equation, change is always possible. And it's not just Jesus that is the change agent. Jesus uses us. Jesus uses people like you and people like me to bring change in the world. There's this man named Ananias who was a key part of the change that we see take place in Saul's life. Verse 2 of this story, Acts chapter 9, says that Paul was taking letters to get permission to go to Damascus, and that if he found any who were on the way, any people on the way that were a part of the way, that's what Christianity was called, that he would be able to take them as prisoners and bring them back to Jerusalem. Verse 3 says, as he neared Damascus on his journey, suddenly a light from heaven flashed around him. He fell to the ground and he heard a voice say to him, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? What's happening is Saul is on a trip to go get people who follow Jesus and put them in jail. And in the middle of his journey, God interrupts it. Jesus sends a light. This video, this YouTube channel, our youth ministry might be this thing that came out of nowhere that's trying to get your attention. And the thing I know about God is he doesn't always do it with a flashing light. But he will use people. He will use video games. He will even use pretty girls. That's what got me to get our attention and bring us into a relationship with him. And maybe, just maybe, you're in that position right here, right now. But I also want to encourage you, never count out how many of your friends could be in a position where they're open to what God wants to do in their life. And what begins to happen is Saul is blinded and he doesn't know what to do. And he goes into the city. This is what Jesus says. He says, I am Jesus whom you are persecuting. Now get up and go into the city and you'll be told what you must do. And so Saul goes in there. The guys he's with are like, oh my gosh, what is happening? This is weird. Saul goes into the city and he's basically sitting there in blindness, it says. He didn't eat anything, he didn't drink anything. And this is what it says in verse 10. It says, in Damascus there was a disciple named Ananias. The Lord called to him in a vision, Ananias. Yes, Lord, he answered. Just so you know, that's the correct answer. If God speaks to you from heaven and he's like, hey, Sally, and you say, yes, Lord. Okay, you say yes, okay? You pay attention to what the God of the universe is saying. And Jesus began to give him some instructions. The Lord told him, go to the house of Judas on Straight Street and ask for a man from Tarsus named Saul, for he is praying. In a vision, he has seen a man named Ananias come and place his hands on him to restore his sight. Lord, Ananias answered, I've heard many reports about this man and all the harm he has done to your holy people in Jerusalem. He's come here with the authority from the chief priest to arrest all who call on your name. But the Lord said to Ananias again, the second go, this man is my chosen instrument to proclaim my name to the Gentiles and their kings and to the people of Israel. What happens is Ananias responds to the call that God has for him. And he goes and he talks to Saul. And what is recorded in the text is that Saul is again encountered by God. His sight is restored. And after meeting Ananias, what Jesus started with a flash, he completed with a friend in Ananias. And what started with a conversion turned into his mission. And he went and he began to tell people about Jesus right away. Saul went from trying to destroy the church to trying to build the church. This is how we change the world. People can change. You might be asking yourself, how do we change the world? How do I help be a part of changing people? Ananias shows us right off the bat that in order to change the world, you have to stay connected. If you're taking notes, if you're trying to learn something from this, maybe screenshot it, hit stay connected. Some of you right now are a little bit into this video and you're thinking of tabbing over to something else like Tim the Tap Man or David Dobrik. I want to encourage you, stay right here. Blue face videos don't need your views right now. You need to stay here, stay connected to this video. We need to stay connected. Ananias was obviously connected to God's presence because he heard God's plan. Some of us don't like the direction our life is going. We don't feel like God's purpose is a part of our life, but it could be because you've exited his presence. When you stay connected to God through reading the word, through prayer, through creating space, creating an atmosphere of worship, maybe 5 minutes before school, maybe 10 minutes, maybe you're getting real crazy and you say, God, I'm gonna give you 20 minutes of my day. That's not even close to how much time I spend on Call of Duty Warzone or doing my makeup, but I'm gonna give you a little bit of what I give a lot to other things. When you make space for God, he will speak to you. Some of us want God to speak without making space for him. And Ananias was connected to God, and so he heard his plan, and he was a part of changing the world, changing Saul. He was also connected to people. Ananias knew that he couldn't just sit in his prayer place and hope that his purpose was fulfilled. He knew that he had to go do something. Your purpose in God will always have people attached to it. We can't just sit in our little pretty prayer spot and just hope, Jesus, please change the world. Make all the bad people go away. We just pray. Let me tell you something. If you're not connected to the people that Jesus died for, then you're never going to experience the real life that he came to give you. You need to stay connected and experience the change. This is how we change the world. Here's a definition of change to work with. Make or become different. Make or become different. And I'm going to add to it for our purposes, better. Jesus doesn't want to just change the world. He doesn't want to just change people, make them different. He wants to change them and make them better. In the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 5, there's this amazing verse. It says this, so from now on, we regard no one from a worldly point of view. Though we once regarded Christ in this way, we do so no longer. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come, the old has gone, the new is here. What I want you to understand is that when you see people, when you see Sauls, when you see people that you hate, that you don't like, I never want you to count God out of the picture. If you follow Jesus, then our purpose is clear that we don't look at people as we see them from a worldly point of view. We look at them with possibility. This is how we change the world. That every person we see the possibility in them. We don't just see them for who they are. We see them with faith to say, but what if they got a hold of God? What if they began to get connected to God? And what if someone connected with them to teach them the things of God? Here's all Ananias did, is he heard God's voice and he said yes. And when he said yes, he didn't do anything fancy. All he did was repeat to Paul, who was then named Saul. He repeated to Saul what God said to him. Some of you overcomplicate what it means to change the world and connect with people. All you got to do is do for them what God did for you. All you got to do is say to them what God said to you. All you have to do to them is do for them what someone did to you. Remember the non-weird way that somebody got you to church? Remember the non-weird way that somebody got you involved in an e-group? Remember how they were persistent, how they had fun with you? That's how Ananias connected with Paul. This is how we change the world. We stay connected. We don't look at people from a worldly point of view. Because I'm going to be honest, there was a time, even now if we're honest, that you could look at me from a worldly point of view and you can see my flaws. But where you see my flaws, God sees my potential. Where you see all the bad things about me, someone with faith sees how God could turn it around. I remember my sophomore year of high school, I started lifting weights. feeling real big, feeling real good. And for the first time in my life, I actually felt like tougher than somebody. And what I instantly did with that, because I didn't have Jesus in my life, I didn't have positive friendships, I didn't have an E-group leader, is I began to use that to my advantage against people. I remember this one time I was like low-key, like actually bullying this kid on the bus. He was kind of smaller than me. I was just picking at him. I was kind of getting in his face a little bit, like actually physically. And I'll never forget, man, like props to this guy. I want to find him someday and be like, you're a G. He stood up to me on the bus and he said, say one more thing or I'm gonna hit you in the face. And I was just kind of acting tough. I really wasn't trying to fight anybody. I was just trying to look good. I was making people laugh at like his expense. You know, not that any of you have ever done that. And then I went down and I sat down. So he shut me up. And the kid in the bus that's sitting behind me hides behind my seat and goes, you suck. And the kid thought that I said it, that I said something else to him. I can't even really repeat. Like, he didn't say you suck. He said something worse. The kid thought that I said it. He comes over to me and he starts, and honestly, like, he wasn't a very big kid, so it didn't, like, I'm not trying to act like a tough guy. I sat down. I wasn't trying to fight him, so I'm not trying to be tough. Just factually, I didn't hit back because it didn't hurt that bad, and I thought in my head, I'm going to get this kid suspended. He thinks he's going to come at me? And I remember walking off the bus, they brought us back to school, and I was like walking out of the bus like, dude, you're an idiot, man. And he got suspended for fighting, but I got suspended for bullying. And that was this moment in my life where I would love to tell you, like, and then I went to church and then I met Jesus. Nah, I stayed the same way for like 2 years. But there was a point where someone did share Jesus with me. And I went to the right church. I got around the right people. And God had a moment like me, like he did with Saul. And I went from being the person that bullied people at school to the person who was defending people, that was trying to bring hope. I was trying to make people laugh at other people's expense. Now I'm trying to bring light to a school. Anyone can change. Anyone can change. I went from a bully to somebody who is trying to be there for people. What I want you to understand is, although we live in a world that paints people in a certain way that they can never change, if we will stay connected to God and stay connected to people, then change is possible. And this, one person at a time, this is how we change the world. Here's the reality of what Saul heard about staying connected. One, staying connected to God is hard because we're busy. Two, staying connected to people it's messy. A lot of the people that God is going to send you to talk to are going to be people who you might not even like. Saul was one of the most hated people, most feared people that could have ever existed in Ananias' world. But I want you to think, put in your head, what if the kid that you hate got a hold of Jesus? What if the person that's against you found out that you were for them? What if you somehow showed this radical love for them that Jesus showed to you, and somehow in all this noise and all this cancel culture, you showed them that you were different? What would happen if they actually changed? I need you to catch a vision. God, through his word in 2 Corinthians, is saying we don't look at people in a worldly way anymore. We look at them through the lens of possibility. We look at everybody through the lens of what Jesus did on the cross, which means if I can change, if you can change, if Saul can change, they can change. What would your school look like? What would your team look like? What would your family look like if the people that were trying to destroy your world actually began to build it? God can do it. He's faithful. What if that group of friends, maybe you're the only one that follows Jesus, and when you're with them, all y'all do is cut up, you smoke a little, you use some crazy stuff. It's not too bad, but what if y'all took the same synergy you had around your friendship circle and you applied it to making people's lives better? You applied it to making your community better. This is how we change the world. Is that in Jesus, we have a hope that's beyond what we can see with our eyes, that he'll show up in someone's life and he will impact them. He'll show up. Connecting to God's presence is everything. 2020 is weird. Now, if you're watching this later after the year 2020, you made it. Thank you so much. Put in the comments. We'll still be reading them 10 years from now. I don't know how long YouTube videos last, but I think it's about 5 years. So put in the comments. But right now, one of the things you might have seen at a grocery store or Target is that there's a coin shortage. Everyone's like, I see all these signs like, no more coins. Don't use coins. We don't have any. So please use exact change or use a debit card. So I started to think about myself. I was like, did the aliens really get that good? Did they actually, instead of abducting people, they started abducting our change? Are they building a massive robot with all the coins? Where did it go? I'm like, we don't have any coins? What happened to them? Like, what's going on? Like, I don't know. And I started to do some research. And what I read on Forbes.com was very illuminating. Y'all ready to get educated? Here we go. Says this in an article on Forbes.com. Stephen Miller, director of the Center for Business and Economic Research at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, says, according to him, the country isn't running out of money. Great news. There are just more coins sitting in pots at home instead of circulating through the economy. Okay. Wait. In economic terms, the current coin situation is the result of a low velocity of circulation, or how quickly a single unit of money changes hands in an economy over a specific period of time. It's reflecting the fact that once circulation is resumed, these disruptions will ease out. What it's saying here is because for a long time, there was this portion where we didn't leave our houses as much, we didn't go out as much, and still people are like that simply people weren't bringing the coins to the business and then going into the hands and everything. What it means is that the coins aren't gone, they're just sitting at home. We have a change shortage, but it's not because the change is absent, it's because it's underutilized. You might look around the world and you might think to yourself, man, I don't see any change happening. I don't know how anything can get better. This looks pretty hopeless, but I want to encourage you. We don't have a shortage of change. The question is, are you going to be somebody who brings it out your house, who brings it out of your situation and actually applies it to somebody else? The reason why we have a change problem is because people are more focused on themselves than they are anybody else. Ananias was a part of changing the world, being a part of changing Saul's life because he stayed connected to God. He stayed connected to Saul. If you want to be a part of changing the world, you have to stay committed. You have to stay committed to this. You can't just leave YTH. You can't just leave a good E group and be like, I feel it now. Let's do it. No, you have to stay passionate even when the feelings fade. You're like, how's that possible? Passion is a feeling, and that's where I follow them. No. You don't understand yet how to lead your feelings and create the right emotions. Passion is a choice, not a feeling, and you need to stay committed. The number one way to stay committed is realizing that the first person that you're always going to think about is yourself. Every single person is this way. Ananias knew that in order to help Saul become Paul, in order to help him experience change, in order to help him change the world, he had to step out of himself into Saul's situation. Here's the good news. You are excellent at commitment. You are 100% perfectly committed to yourself. You know how to wake up and think about yourself. You know how to take care of you. You know how to make sure your needs are met. You know how to help you, boo. You know what you like. You know what you love. You know how you like to have your macaroni and cheese. This is an important thing. You know how all your particulars. This is how I like my bed. I sleep with my socks. I don't sleep with any socks. I like my cereal by pouring the cereal first and then the milk. Oh no, I'm a milk first, then cereal person. You're someone who doesn't even drink the milk after cereal, which means you're a cereal killer. Okay? You know what you like. You're committed to yourself. So here's all you have to do to be committed to people. You just have to do for somebody else what you would do for you. You have to do for somebody else what you would do for you. Ananias knew that to stay committed to the mission of God on earth, he had to get past himself. One of the things that you'll see in this passage is that twice God said to Ananias, go. He had to tell Ananias twice. Let me tell you, we serve a God who loves us enough to tell you twice. Maybe y'all heard it from your mom. I ain't going to tell you twice. Well, God, he's going to tell us twice. Ananias probably heard go and he recognized the verbiage because the last thing Jesus said, the very last thing Jesus said on earth sounded a little bit like this. He said, therefore, go into all the world, making disciples in my name, teaching them to obey all the things that I've taught you. Go. God's final words on earth before he ascended to heaven were go. Ananias was able to understand that sometimes the go means I got to get myself out of the way and do for somebody else what I would do for myself or what I wish somebody would do for you. You got to stay connected. You've got to stay committed. The definition of commitment is to be bound to it, to be binded. Binded. That means glued. You know what binds stuff? Glue. You have to figure out to say, God, glue me to your mission. Because the world thinks we have a change shortage. It's just that too many Christians aren't willing to circulate what God has done in our life. They want to sit at home and just pray. Let me tell you something. We have never been and never will be a thoughts and prayer youth ministry. What I mean by that is we think and we pray, but we don't leave it at that. We have never been that way as a church, and we never will be. We are not going to just think about the problems and pray about them. We're going to be about that action, boss. And we're going to stay committed when it gets ugly. Because here's the reality. People, they want to rock with Paul. Oh yeah, he wrote the New Testament. He's great. He was a part of changing the world. He was awesome. Paul was this amazing guy and leader. Oh, he's experiencing life change. People want to rock with Paul, but they don't want to walk with Saul. Some of you got to realize that so much of your commitment to God's plan is based off your comfort level. You got to get yourself out of the way and say, God, who do you need me to talk to? Who do you need me to sit with? What do you need me to do? You need me to volunteer at my campus. You need me to do an outreach event. You need me to get off my butt and actually just reshare the posts that the Elevation Youth Instagram is posting, because if my friends saw it, it could actually maybe just change their life. Yes. Some of you won't even share an Instagram because you're too worried about your image. Some of you are more worried about the questions people ask than the conversations that you would actually start that could actually lead to someone's life being changed. Yeah, you might get mocked by 3 friends, but what about the 4th who's been waiting to see something different on their feed? What about your 4th friend? What about the one whose family is going through a divorce? What about the one who is in the middle of depression and anxiety? What about the one who doesn't know what to do because normally sports is their outlet, but they can't do that because of quarantine? They are waiting for you to get yourself out of the way and say, this is how we change the world. People are wondering why there's so many protests. Why are people so active on social? Everything's crazy. Because there's some people who are just tired of things not changing, that they're willing to do something that they've never done before and that possibly isn't all the way correct, but they're at least doing something. The people who are just posting, maybe that's some of you, all you do is post, you just post opinions. I think that the reason why you keep posting is because you know things need to change. But let me encourage you. Maybe you should just stop posting and you should start talking to some people. Maybe you should stop just reposting conspiracy theories or just all the things that fall in line with what you already believe, and understand that even as a 7th grader, even as a senior, you have influence. Ananias didn't have much, but he had the presence of God and he knew how to be present with people. This is how we change the world. 1 person at a time. I used to be a bully. I used to drag people down and destroy them. And what I do now is I build people up. If you would have known me when I was 18, if you would have known what I was like, you never would have thought that I would be a positive influence in anyone's life, because I was all about me. And some days, many days, I'm still about me. But Jesus helps me get the me out of the way so I can stay connected. And I'm going to stay committed, man. I'm going to be bound to this. I'm going to walk with people in their bad times. The last thing that Ananias understood the power of. You want to change the world? You got to stay connected, stay committed. You got to stay creating. Ananias, we don't know what his gifts were, but he was available. He didn't have a platform, but he had influence. Saul, it says in verse 22, he went out and he started talking to people, convincing them of Jesus. Saul's gift was his mouth. Saul's gift was his ability to communicate. Saul understood that God had given him something and he needed to use it for God. My junior year, when I finally got right with God and he was changing my life, there was this horrible thing happening in Africa. And in many ways it still is. And there's many atrocities in this country, but specifically there's this organization that had a large amount of power called the Lord's Resistance Army. And what they would do in Africa is they would kidnap kids. They would abduct them from their homes. They would bring them to camps. They would drug them. They would indoctrinate them. And they would teach them how to shoot AK-47s. And they would use them. There was literal child armies. It still exists today. But this specific group, LRA, and there's a group of Americans who founded this organization called Invisible Children, because their whole thesis, their whole idea was the world doesn't even know this is happening. They were one of the very first YouTube groups of people that brought positivity to YouTube. In fact, they were one of the first videos to reach 20 million views in less than 24 hours. Just Google it. Put in Coney 2012. It'll blow your mind. I heard about them and I worked with my National Honor Society president, my principal, and we organized them to come to our school. And in an after-school event, I spent hours, I spent days networking. I'd never done anything like this, planning, inviting people, like some kid who like sucked at Photoshop low-key, but he like designed his first like little flyer. We got it out there, and what ended up happening is we filled our auditorium on a Friday after school with over 800 high schoolers to hear about what they could do to stop horrible people across the world. We raised money, we raised awareness, people signed up for internships, we raised thousands of dollars, and they told me that it was one of the most successful things that they ever done. I do not tell you this story because I want to put the pressure on you that you need to go do this. All I want you to realize is that what it means to change the world isn't just that we have Jesus in our hearts. It means that we do something with our hands. You have a talent, you have a skill, you have time. God has put something in you that you are to create into this world. We need to stay creating. We need to use the gifts God has given us. Saul knew that he could talk to people. And the gift of talking and his knowledge was the thing that he used to destroy the church, to destroy people, was now the thing that he used to help people and to help them experience the change that he had experienced. My bullying, you know what that meant? It meant that I had influence. And I knew how to tear people apart with my words. Now I flipped it and I build people up. The reason why I point this out to you is because when you encounter Jesus for real, it shouldn't just equate to Bible studies and do-gooding. It should mean I'm making justice happen in this world. It means that I see a need, I meet the need. I see a cause, I'm gonna fight for it. I see something going on in my street, in my city, in my block. I'm not just gonna pray about it, I'm gonna do something about it. You were meant to create good things in the world. And if Christians stay at home and judge, nothing is going to change. This is how we change the world. I want to ask you, what has God given you as a talent or even an interest? You know how many people I've connected to an e-group through Fortnite? If you don't know what an e-group is, it's basically an extension. It's a part of our youth ministry. Our youth ministry isn't this big group of people. Our youth ministry is actually a bunch of e-groups because it's a few people who get together where they're able to talk, do life, hang out, have fun, talk about the message on the weekend, talk about rhythm nights. They're able to be there for each other. Do you know how many people have been connected to that through things like video games? My wife works at a boutique, a fashionista she is, and every day she texts me. I could show you all the texts. I love my wife, Amanda. I love you. Mwah. She texts me about how she uses selling women clothes to invite them to church. She signed up 2 high schoolers to her e-group because they were doing back to school shopping and she was available. She connected with them because she was committed that even though I'm working in a clothing store, I'm on mission still. And she realized that even if it's not much, I'm gonna create something out of what God's given me. Maybe you'll fill a high school auditorium, maybe not. Maybe you're supposed to fill a chat room or a Snapchat, or you're supposed to do drawings, or maybe you just need to create conversation around the person of Jesus, because you know what? If you step out, he'll show up. And guess what? Ananias didn't know that Jesus had already met Saul on the road. And you don't know what God is already doing in the lives of your friends and the people that you are hoping for, praying for. Maybe you don't even pray for them because you don't even believe that they could change. If I could change, if Saul could change. Saul went on to become Paul. And he wrote most of what we know of the Bible in the New Testament. The letters, Corinthians, Timothy. He pioneered the very thing that he was beginning to destroy. If God can change him, God can change anything. This is how we change the world. By looking at people, not with earthly point of view, not from a worldly standard, but realizing that if anyone is in Christ, they are a new creation. You might be watching going, I want to change right now. You can experience change. Put in the comments. Find us on Instagram or Twitter, Elevation YTH. Let us know if you want to get connected, if you want to experience change, if you want Jesus in your life, we can help you. But you've got to know that if you keep looking at this world and people without any possibility, then you have shut down God's plan in your life. Anything can happen. People can change. And this, one person at a time. People far from God, raised to life in Christ. This is how we built our church. And this is how we change the world.
We believe in the youth! We hope you enjoyed that video. Honestly, we create content like this just for you. And whether you're engaging with your friends and your family, or whether it's just with the comments below, we would love for you to continue to do that. Make sure you subscribe, click that bell for notifications, and we hope to see you at the next video. Love you.